Hi everyone, I'm Celeste. Welcome to my booktube channel, A Reader's Almanac, and today I am here to share with you the all-of-a-kind buddy read that I just completed with my friend Heather from her booktube channel, WaterBearReads, and boy did we have fun. You know, it's late September, almost October, and the leaves aren't really changing color yet, but it does feel fallish. It has a bit of a different tone to the light out there. I just love it when the light changes in the fall, and some of the leaves are starting to fall down, so it's coming on my favorite time of year, and I think it's a perfect time to read all-of-a-kind family books. The first one, which I had brought to you in a video months ago, was All-of-a-Kind Family by Sydney Taylor, and here's the lovely cover for that. And this is the first book in the series, and since I talked to you in that video about All-of-a-Kind Family, I have also read two others in the series by Sydney Taylor. There is All-of-a-Kind Family Downtown, so good, and then also just finished reading more All-of-a-Kind Family. So All-of-a-Kind Family is a series of books about a poor immigrant family living in New York's East Side on the eve of World War I. And there are 5 sisters: Ella, Henny, Sarah, Charlotte, and Gertie. And then in later books, there is a little baby brother, Charlie, that comes along. And the thing I love about these books, I think, just as I love about the Golden Name Day and the Little House books, is just the celebration of everyday magic, just everyday things. So it talks about going around the house on a rainy day and there's nothing to do, so their mama hides buttons for them to find under couch cushions and up on shelves and in vases and things like that. And the father owns a shop where he collects rags, and the children go there on rainy days, and all the peddlers come in from all different parts, and they're just so magical. They involve a lot of holidays, a lot of surprises, the way they decorate with flowers and leaves, their trials and tribulations at school. They're just so magical. And the second book in the series, it's the second one that Sydney Taylor wrote, was All-of-a-Kind Family Downtown. It seems like each book is even more special than the last. This one did not get published till the 1970s, but it was the second book that sequentially or chronologically that Sydney Taylor wrote. And the experiences of the books bring back an old New York, which has all but vanished today. So this is a world where there are still pickle barrels and L trains and the tenement houses of New York City, horse-driven wagons and the dangers of horse-driven wagons. You know, there are no lanes on the road in these days. The descriptions of the clothing are marvelous, and simple pleasures are highlighted all the way through these books. Now, while the books do take place throughout all of the seasons, so they're appropriate really to read any time of year, I think this one in particular is wonderful for autumn. So here is a really great illustration of the children snuggling in their warm feather bed on an icy November morning. I just love that illustration. And then I had marked a spot on the next page where it talks about the girls vying to get a spot in front of the stove. It was good to be in the warm, cozy kitchen. On the big coal stove, cocoa was heating in one pot and oatmeal bubbling cheerfully in another. A tray on a shelf above the stove was stacked temptingly with fresh, crusty rolls. Mama's morning coffee, coming slowly to a boil, added its own fragrance to the other delicious odors. Don't you just love the smell of coffee in the morning? I live for that. The girls sniffed the air hungrily. Sprawled in the rocker, Charlotte was already in possession of the catched spot directly in front of the stove. Her stockinged feet were propped up on the shiny nickel-plated ledge which jutted out to one side like a shelf. She wriggled her warm toes. On the floor beside her, Gertie sat struggling with a button hook in a valiant attempt to button her own shoes. On such a cold November morning, the nearer you got to the stove, the warmer you felt. And while in these books there are lots of comic mishaps, there are also tragedies. And one of the most touching aspects of All of a Kind Family Downtown is the story of Guido, who is an Italian boy, and he always runs away from the girls. He's kind of a loner, and he doesn't want them to know anything about them. But one day, one of the sisters, Ella, follows him and walks along with him kind of and tries to befriend him. And it turns out that they're going to his home in the Bowery. But first he needs to drop off rags that he's collected at a sweatshop, a factory. And so I'll just read you this one little quote here. And I'll just read you this one little excerpt here. Guido stood up, picked up his bundle, and said gruffly, "Come on, let's go." They walked the rest of the way without exchanging another word. Finally, Guido said, "This is the Bowery. The factory's across the way." Ella had never been on the Bowery before. She gazed about curiously. High overhead was the elevated train. On either side, a narrow single track ran close to the upper stories of the house, leaving the center of the street open to the sky. The strong sunlight filtered through the spaces in the tracks, forming crosshatch designs on the sidewalk below. Ella would have liked to have stopped and rummaged through the merchandise in a second-hand store, but Guido hurried her along. Past the saloon, through whose swinging doors there streamed the sour, sweet, bitter smell of beer and free lunch. "This is the place," Guido said. He led the way into a narrow, dingy hallway, and they trudged up the rickety wooden stairs. On the second floor, Guido opened a door, and a tremendous roaring sound filled Ella's ears. Even the very walls started to tremble. "What's that?" she exclaimed. "Sewing machines," Guido told her. "Electric ones." They entered a long room which ran the entire length of the building. It was crowded with machines, tables, and people. On the floor, mounds of garments were piled high. Near the far end, between two grimy windows, Ella could see a long cutting table. Two men with tape measures dangling from their shoulders were pinning a brown paper pattern to a bolt of cloth spread out before them. The room was hot and close. It's just incredible. We find out that Guido's mother is quite sick. There's a description of where they live. There's a description of welfare to help people at that time. It's just so powerful. It really made me shed a number of tears. You'll be laughing in some spots and crying in others. And it's just fabulous. And the mingling of light and dark continues in more All of a Kind Family, which I had just read recently with Heather as a buddy read. And in this book, there are also very funny events that take place. The chapters are just hilarious. But there are also chapters with heartache and loss. And this book, for example, deals with the subject of polio. And what was it that they called it? Infantile paralysis, I think. but it was taking away a lot of the babies in the Lower East Side at this time. I know that in reading this book together, Heather and I did email back and forth a bit, and I believe that Heather found the chapters on the polio outbreak especially fascinating and touching. In our lifetimes, you know, there are family and friends, lives, and people in our community still alive who were touched by polio. And she thought it was especially interesting that in order to get away from the infantile paralysis or polio, the family temporarily relocates to a house in Rockaway. And I remember Heather said that it was really interesting to have them wake up and hear the sounds of the ocean rather than the sounds of the street, and everybody living really close together in little flats and apartments in the heart of, in the city. So that was really, really interesting. One of the things I really appreciated about it was the introduction to the culture of the Jewish people and the immigrants who moved here. It's interesting to note, for example, that one of the characters, she has only been in the country for 2 years, and she was escaping hardship and poverty in Eastern Europe and came to the United States for a better life. And she still talks a bit of broken English, and I'm not sure which character it is, maybe Mama, reminds the children that she's only been here for a couple years. I think in today's polarizing environment of otherizing people, it's good to remember that it was past the year 1900 when many Americans first arrived on these shores, many of them through Ellis Island and other places. And so it really is not that long that a lot of us people have been here. I'm really looking forward to reading more of the All of the Kind books. And in addition, I also picked up this biography by June Cummins with Alexandra Dunietz, and it's called From Sarah to Sydney, The Woman Behind All of a Kind Family. This is a lovely looking volume. Look at the photograph of Sydney Taylor on the front here. And this is rather thick, and it's a rather dense book. I will say that June Cummins, the author, was an academician. It is written in a bit of a dry style, and it is academic. But if you can sort of get beyond that and just dive into it, you will learn so much. The thing that I found the most fascinating in this book was the editing process at publishing houses and how an editor works with a writer and how their relationship begins. And sometimes writers and editors never end up getting along, and other times they do. But the writer is looking to speak her truth and to convey the poetic truth of things. The editor has to also balance that very carefully on a tightrope with the publishing of the book and what the public will enjoy, what the public will read, how the book is going to be advertised, what will be accepted, what's daring, what may not be accepted, what are the prevalent themes of the day, and will this book change anything? Well, I certainly think this book, all of the All of a Kind books, changed a great deal. You know, one of the things that I find a bit difficult about some children's books published today is that they sometimes put didactic teaching and moral lessons before good stories. And the children's writer Patricia Polacco once said, "We don't teach children to be kinder, but we can, through great stories, inspire them to be kinder." I feel like all of the all-of-a-kind books by Sydney Taylor do just that. They show you the children's lives, the hardships, even death, tragedy, outbreaks, pandemics, the coming of war, living in tenements, working in sweat houses, being a rag collector on the streets of New York City, intermingling that with the light. It's the sunlight crosshatched on the pavement, as Sydney Taylor wrote in one of the books. The moments of light and dark. And I think children are very smart. They're much smarter than we give them credit for, and they pick up on those things, and they learn to accept. They learn to sort out the good from the bad. They don't need us adults teaching them and wagging a finger saying, this is what you should think. Yes, certainly have conversations around that, but show them it through an excellent story. I had such a blast reading the books along with Heather. I'm looking forward to the final ones in the All of a Kind series. I loved learning about Sydney Taylor's life, her personal life, who she married, her own children. She was Sarah in the All of a Kind books. And yeah, it's been a fantastic experience, and it's really made me think more about the world of editing, the world of publishing, and life. My favorite time period at the turn of the century, really from about 1870 up through 1920, is just an era I absolutely am fascinated by. And so I'm looking forward to sharing a lot more content which focuses on books written during this period. And I think that autumn is such a wonderful time to do that, autumn and winter. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to bringing you more on my favorite books from that era. And thank you, Heather, for doing this buddy read with me. You made my first buddy read just so much fun. I had a blast. And that's it for today. So I'm sorry I have not been posting on a regular schedule lately. Life has been crazy, but I do hope to get some more videos up this coming week and next week, and I'm planning for October and November and all of the fall and autumn things that I love so much. So that is it for today. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.